Welcome the anointed ones. There's a special kind of silence that hits a room when a chosen one finally stops entertaining nonsense. Not because you're trying to be mysterious, but because that's the exact moment everyone realizes they can't play you anymore. And suddenly they start feeling dumb as hell without you even lifting a finger. What's wild is that psychologists have actually observed something called ego collapse, where a person feels intellectually threatened just by standing next to someone who sees through them. And honestly, that's exactly the meltdown people have around you. The moment you stop participating in their little emotional games, the mask they've been holding up with duct tape and delusion slips right off. They're left standing there looking confused, embarrassed, and weirdly offended, like, wait, you mean I'm not as slick as I thought? And the funniest part? These same people were so confident when they thought you were easy to manipulate. They had strategies, tactics, fake stories, emotional traps, like some dollar store version of a mastermind villain. But when you didn't fall for it, when you simply stepped back and said, "Nah, I'm good," their whole script collapsed. It's like they rehearsed a full drama scene and you walked off set before the cameras even rolled. What gets them the most is that you didn't leave with drama. You didn't expose them. You didn't fight. You didn't beg. You didn't even bother explaining. You just quietly removed yourself. And suddenly they're in emotional algebra, trying to figure out where it all went wrong. That's the energy that has people bitter right now. Not your success, not your independence, not your confidence, but the brutal realization that they couldn't keep you in the games they built to control you. And now they're stumbling around in their own emotional debris, feeling stupid, salty, and shook, because the person they underestimated is the same person who saw the truth the entire time. This is why your absence feels like judgment. This is why your peace feels like a warning. And this is why they're bitter that you want no part of the nonsense they call relationships, friendships, or connections. Let's talk about why your refusal to play their games exposed everybody. Number one, people feel dumb around you because your clarity exposes the fog they've been living in. There's a certain kind of clarity you carry that most people never develop, and it hits them in a way they can't hide. You don't walk into a room trying to be wise or trying to outthink anybody. You simply see things without the filters they've been using their whole lives. You see motives without needing explanations. You notice patterns long before anyone else admits they exist. You hear the truth hidden underneath the words. And that has a way of exposing something people don't want to face. They've been lying to themselves so long they don't even realize it anymore. When someone has built their whole life around avoiding accountability, a person like you feels threatening. Not because you're aggressive or confrontational, but because you make self-deception impossible. They can't pretend around you. They can't hide behind confusion. They can't distract you with drama. Even when you say nothing, your presence forces people to see what they've been ignoring. It creates a kind of discomfort they blame on you, because accepting the truth would require effort they aren't ready for. Your clarity didn't come from theory or spiritual quotes. It came from life, from observing people deeply, from experiencing betrayal, from waking up after being lied to, from seeing how quickly people twist things to protect their ego. You learned to navigate reality without illusions because illusions cost you too much. Meanwhile, others are still trying to survive inside those illusions, so when they talk to you, they can feel their worldview falling apart in real time. People don't feel dumb because you make them feel inferior. They feel dumb because they suddenly realize what they've been missing. They realize how many red flags they ignored. They realize how much they've been manipulated. They realize how little they questioned. And worst of all, they realize how long they let their fears lead them. You're not intimidating because you try to be. You're intimidating because your truth disrupts their comfort. And when someone has lived in fog for years, even a small amount of clarity feels like a spotlight. That's why they react, why they get bitter, and why they pull away. Your clarity forces a level of honesty they're not ready for, and instead of growing from it, they'd rather call you the problem. Number 2, you walked away from their games because you outgrew the level they were trying to trap you in. At some point, you just stopped playing. You stopped bending yourself into shapes that fit someone else's drama. You stopped jumping through hoops built to test your patience, your loyalty, and your sanity. And when you do that, people notice, but they don't understand it. They assume you're being cold, distant, or arrogant. The truth is far simpler. You've grown past their level, and they didn't see it coming. You've been in the game long enough to see the patterns, the manipulation, the endless cycles of control disguised as friendship, love, or opportunity. You've learned what triggers people, what gets them to fold, and what makes them scramble to prove themselves. You've seen the fake smiles, the staged arguments, the performances meant to distract and confuse. And instead of continuing to invest your energy into that chaos, you just step away. You don't yell, you don't accuse, you don't chase. You just remove yourself, and suddenly the entire system collapses. That's what irritates them the most. They were counting on you staying in the game, on you playing the part they wrote for you. They wanted reactions, leverage, validation, drama. You refused to perform. You refused to feed their illusions. And now they're left holding a script with no actor to follow it. It's infuriating for them because their sense of control was dependent on your participation. When you outgrow the level they were operating on, they realize too late that they weren't dealing with someone they could manipulate. They were dealing with someone who sees, understands, and refuses to comply. Walking away isn't weakness or avoidance. It's awareness. It's refusing to waste energy where it will never be respected. It's choosing growth over approval, peace over chaos, and truth over lies. And the bitterness you see in people afterward, that's the price of realizing they overestimated their power and underestimated your clarity. They're upset because the game they thought they controlled ended the moment you stepped off the board. Your absence exposes their limitations, and they hate it, but you don't care anymore. You've already moved to a place where their games no longer reach you. Number 3, your emotional discipline scares people who survive on chaos. There's a reason people get uncomfortable around you, and it's not because you're loud, flashy, or overbearing. It's because you've learned to manage your emotions in a way that most people can't even comprehend. You don't react impulsively. You don't overthink what someone said or try to decode every little nuance just to find a reason to be upset. You've mastered the ability to respond deliberately, to stay calm when the world is spinning out of control, and to maintain your composure even when others are trying to drag you into their drama. That kind of emotional discipline is terrifying to people who thrive on chaos. For those who build their power on stirring conflict, provoking reactions and creating storms to feel alive, your calm is like a mirror reflecting the emptiness of their tactics. They can't manipulate you because you see through it too quickly. They can't gaslight you because your mind is already clear. They can't drain your energy because you protect it fiercely. And when someone who relies on emotional turbulence meets someone who refuses to be moved by it, they panic. That panic looks like irritation, bitterness, or even subtle attacks. They try to unsettle you because they can't accept that their old tricks don't work. Your discipline isn't built overnight. It's earned through experience, through learning that giving your energy to nonsense only leaves you exhausted. It's built from countless encounters with people who tried to pull you into arguments, betrayals, and petty rivalries, only to realize that you weren't interested in playing their game. And the more they see you navigating life without being triggered, without losing your composure, the more they feel exposed and powerless. They're bitter, not because you're stronger than them. They're bitter because they relied on the illusion of their own power, and your calm destroys that illusion. You aren't just untouchable emotionally. You're untouchable in a way that forces them to face their own chaos, their own weakness, and the fact that they can't control you. That realization makes them insecure, frustrated, and ultimately completely aware that they underestimated you from the very beginning. Number 4. You see motives before people even finish their sentences. There's a sharpness in you that people don't understand. You don't just hear words, you read between them, you feel the intention behind them, and you catch the inconsistencies before anyone else does. It's not some mystical ability, it's the result of paying attention, observing patterns, and living long enough to notice how people operate when they think no one is watching. You've learned to recognize the telltale signs of deception, manipulation, and hidden agendas, and it makes you untouchable in a way that most people can't stand. When someone is trying to get something from you, whether it's approval, attention, or compliance, you can see it immediately. You notice the hesitation, the overcompensation, the carefully chosen words meant to disguise the truth. You sense the unspoken emotion lurking behind every sentence, the insecurity, the greed, the fear. And because you see it so clearly, you don't fall for their little tricks. You don't need them to spell it out for you, because you already know the play before the first move is even made. That kind of awareness can make people feel dumb, not because they are, but because they realize you've been watching the game while they thought they were hiding it. What's even more unsettling for others is that you don't make a show of your insight. You don't call them out at every turn or confront every manipulation in real time. You observe, you understand, you wait. Your silence is a strategy, but it's also a mirror, reflecting back their true intentions. The realization hits them slowly, painfully. They were never as clever as they thought, and you saw it all along. People who rely on smoke and mirrors can't stand someone who walks through the fog with clarity. They feel exposed, cornered, and somehow smaller, even if they're louder, richer, or more aggressive. They hate that your perception isn't clouded by fear, desire, or ego. And while they scramble to figure out how you knew it all along, you're already ahead, untangled from their games and steps beyond the reach of their chaos. You're a force they can't manipulate, and that truth stings more than anything you could ever say. Number 5. They're bitter because they can't weaponize your kindness anymore. Kindness is a weapon in the hands of people who don't understand it. They use it to manipulate, to guilt, to control, and to extract whatever they think they deserve from you. For a long time, you may have given without expecting anything in return, unaware that some people were taking notes, plotting how to turn your generosity into leverage. But the moment you stopped handing them ammunition, that's when the bitterness started to show. They relied on your openness, your empathy, your willingness to care, to validate their self-importance. Every kind word, every small favor, every moment of patience was, for them, an opportunity to maneuver, to make you feel indebted, or to make themselves feel superior. And they were good at it. So good that for a while it almost seemed normal, but you eventually recognized it. You saw that your kindness wasn't being respected, it was being used, and when you finally put boundaries in place, when you stopped being their emotional punching bag and human Swiss Army knife, the game changed entirely. Now they're bitter because their entire strategy no longer works. You're not the person they can guilt, cajole, or manipulate into doing what they want. They can't twist your words or gestures to suit their narrative. The thing that once gave them control, the trust you freely offered, is gone, and they hate it. It's like someone cut the strings on their puppet show, and suddenly all their moves feel meaningless. They're forced to confront a reality they weren't prepared for. Your value isn't theirs to claim, and your energy is no longer a tool in their hands. What makes this even more frustrating for them is that you didn't have to fight, yell, or expose them. You just changed the rules for yourself. You didn't take anything from them. They lost access the moment you decided to protect yourself. That's the kind of clarity and strength that leaves people bitter, scrambling, and painfully aware that the person they thought they could control has grown immune to their tactics. And that realization, it's a sting they'll carry long after you've walked away. Number 6. You don't argue because you already understand the outcome of every conversation. You've reached a point where arguing feels pointless, because you can see the whole picture before anyone even finishes speaking. Most people enter conversations thinking it's a battle to win, a war of words where the loudest, fastest, or most aggressive person claims victory. You don't operate like that. You've learned that arguing for the sake of proving yourself only feeds the egos of people who are too blind to see the truth anyway. You already know their angles, their weaknesses, and exactly how far they're willing to go to protect their illusions. That's why you respond, or more often, don't respond, deliberately. You recognize when someone is trying to provoke you, bait you, or control the narrative, and you refuse to take the bait. Your energy is finite, your time is valuable, and you've learned that engaging in a fight where the other person isn't open to truth is like throwing a torch into a hurricane. The fire disappears, but the chaos remains, and you won't let yourself be caught in it. This approach terrifies people who depend on drama to feel powerful. They expect resistance, reaction, debate, or defensiveness. That's how they measure intelligence, influence, or control. When you don't play that game, when you stay calm and composed while they escalate, it makes them feel small, frustrated, and incapable. They can't handle someone who understands the outcome before it even begins because it strips them of the illusion that they're in charge. You don't argue because you've seen the patterns too many times. You've watched conversations escalate into pointless conflict, and you've watched people dig themselves deeper into their own lies while pretending to be right. You know when truth matters, when silence is strategic, and when walking away is the strongest response. And that's what leaves others shaken. They realize too late that they underestimated your foresight and control. Your restraint isn't weakness, it's mastery. It's the kind of calm that makes people second-guess themselves, question their intentions, and ultimately feel exposed. You've chosen a higher level of awareness, and that choice leaves them bitter, scrambling, and painfully aware that you've already won before the conversation even started. Number 7. They realize too late that you were the only honest mirror in their life. People don't like mirrors that show the truth they've been avoiding. They think they want feedback, guidance, or companionship, but what they really want is affirmation of their illusions. And you, whether they knew it or not, were the rare person who reflected reality without bending it to comfort them. You didn't sugarcoat, you didn't flatter, and you didn't enable. You simply held up a mirror, and what they saw wasn't always easy to swallow. The problem is, most people are allergic to honesty. They have spent years building narratives that justify their actions, excuses that protect their pride, and selective memories that make them feel superior or in control. When someone like you comes along and refuses to participate in the deception, it feels like an attack. They mistake your clarity and integrity for criticism, and instead of recognizing the gift of truth, they resent it. That resentment builds quietly while you continue living your life with the same honesty and awareness they can't emulate. And then one day, you leave. You remove yourself from the constant access they had to reality through you. Suddenly, they're left staring at their own reflection in the shards of the life they've constructed. Only now, without your presence to guide them toward accountability, they realize the truth they've been avoiding. They see the patterns they ignored, the lies they told themselves, and the mistakes they could have corrected if they had only listened. The clarity they once resented now becomes unbearable. It's bitter, painful, and humiliating for them. They can't go back and undo the fact that you were honest, consistent, and unshakable while they floundered. They can't rewind the moments when they could have learned, grown, or healed, because they chose comfort over confrontation. And that's why they feel small, dumb, and frustrated. The mirror was always there, but they refused to look. You don't leave with malice or gloating. You leave because your energy belongs to you, and in doing so, you expose the painful truth. The one person they could never manipulate, deceive, or gaslight was the one person they had all along. And that realization stings harder than anything you could ever say. Number 8. You destroy people's fake confidence without saying a single insulting word. There's a unique kind of power in being unshakable, calm, and unapologetically yourself, and people around you feel it even when you don't speak. You don't have to call anyone out, explain your actions, or prove your worth. Your presence alone exposes the hollowness of the confidence that others work so hard to manufacture. They strut, they posture, they exaggerate, and they throw around bravado like armor, but you move through life with authenticity that makes all of that pretense look absurd. They feel it immediately, and it scares them. Fake confidence is fragile because it depends entirely on perception. People build it by convincing themselves they're smarter, stronger, or more important than they really are. They rely on others to buy into their story. They need constant validation, attention, or comparison to feel secure. You, however, don't participate in that illusion. You don't inflate their ego, you don't compete for their approval, and you don't play the game that reinforces their false sense of superiority. Simply by existing with self-respect, composure, and clarity, you pull the rug out from under them. Their exaggerated bravado, carefully curated image, and posturing suddenly feel meaningless because you don't engage or react the way they expect. The subtlety of it is what drives them insane. You're not calling them out or trying to embarrass them. You're not making noise or creating drama. You're simply living in your truth, and your stability contrasts so sharply with their performance that they can't help but feel small. The confidence they thought was unshakable crumbles quietly, painfully, and they know it. What makes this even more infuriating for them is that they can't blame you. You didn't do anything to harm them. You didn't attack, manipulate, or shame. You simply exist as someone who doesn't need validation, manipulation, or theatrics to succeed. And that truth, your authenticity, your integrity, your refusal to entertain nonsense, is the mirror that shows them exactly how hollow they really are. Without saying a word, without raising a finger, you leave them feeling exposed, insecure, and aware that their so-called power was never real in the first place. Number 9. They can't stand that you stay grounded while their whole identity is shaky. There's a quiet power in someone who knows who they are and doesn't need constant reassurance from the world. You carry a sense of self that isn't dependent on attention, approval, or manipulation. You don't need to prove yourself to anyone, and that steadiness is terrifying to people whose identity is fragile. They build themselves up on illusions, borrowed confidence, and borrowed narratives, and your presence shines a light on how unstable it all really is. That stability you carry, that inner certainty, exposes the cracks in their carefully constructed personas. People with shaky identities live in constant fear of being exposed. They measure themselves by the approval of others, the reactions they can provoke, or the games they can win. They don't know who they are at the core, so they try to convince the world, and sometimes themselves, that they are someone formidable. When you walk through life grounded, aware, and unmoved by their chaos, it forces them to confront their own emptiness. They realize that no amount of posturing or manipulation can give them what you were born with, a solid foundation, clarity, and self-possession. The bitterness shows up in subtle ways. They critique, judge, gossip, and undermine, not because it will affect you, but because it's the only way they can process the discomfort of being next to someone so unshakable. Every word you don't react to, every calm decision you make, every confident step forward becomes a mirror reflecting the fragility of their identity. They feel it in moments when you make choices effortlessly while they struggle to maintain appearances. Your grounded energy highlights everything they lack, and there's nothing they can do to change it. The frustrating truth for them is that your strength isn't performative. It doesn't need drama, attention, or validation. It's rooted in experience, awareness, and self-respect, qualities they can't fake and can't take from you. That's why they feel small, bitter, and off balance around you. You are proof that true power comes from within, and that realization is a blow to anyone who has spent their life relying on illusions to feel significant. Number 10. You don't join the games because you already paid the price of knowing the truth. You've been around long enough to see the cost of playing someone else's game, and it's a cost most people never fully recognize until it's too late. You've watched manipulation, lies, betrayal, and drama unfold, and you've felt the sting of being dragged into chaos that wasn't yours to carry. You know how much energy it takes to pretend, to convince, to argue, to prove yourself in a world where most people operate from ego, fear, and selfish motives. That experience has taught you one thing. Life is too short to participate in games that don't serve your growth, your peace, or your clarity. Most people still think the game is fun, or that it's a way to prove themselves. They don't see the long-term exhaustion, the emotional drain, and the slow erosion of integrity that comes with trying to navigate a world built on manipulation and ego. You do. You've already experienced what it costs to engage in battles where nobody wins but the illusion of power. You've paid attention to patterns, observed the strategies, and learned the moments when stepping back is more powerful than stepping in. That knowledge, earned through real consequences and personal growth, gives you an immunity most people can't understand. By refusing to participate, you're not being lazy, indifferent, or weak. You're protecting yourself, preserving your energy, and choosing to operate on a higher level. That decision, simple as it is, leaves people frustrated because they relied on the expectation that you would play, react, and conform to their rules. When you don't, their sense of control shatters, and they realize too late that you're operating from a place they can't touch, a place of understanding, awareness, and hard-earned wisdom. You don't need to prove yourself or prove them wrong. Your choice to abstain from games isn't a statement. It's a natural consequence of your experience and awareness. And the bitterness people feel around you isn't about what you have. It's about the truth they refuse to see and the lessons they avoided learning, lessons you already paid the price to understand. Your refusal is your power, and that power is unshakable. Number 11. People feel stupid because they can't predict you, but you predict them with painful accuracy. There's an edge to you that others notice immediately, even if they can't put it into words. You don't just react to people, you anticipate them. You notice patterns, habits, and tendencies before anyone else does. You can sense the moves they're about to make, the stories they're about to spin, and the intentions they're trying to hide. It's not luck or intuition. It's observation, experience, and understanding human behavior at a level most people don't bother to reach. And that level of awareness makes others feel exposed, uncertain, and ultimately dumb. Most people operate on autopilot, thinking their actions are clever or unpredictable. They plan, manipulate, and strategize, believing no one is watching closely enough to see through it. Then you come along, calm and collected, seeing the same patterns they've been repeating for years, and you act, or even just exist, in a way that makes them feel powerless. You don't have to call them out or prove your point. Simply by being who you are, you create a space where their illusions crumble, where their confidence falters, and where they start questioning everything they thought they knew about their own cleverness. The real frustration for them is that your accuracy isn't performative. You don't need to highlight it or make it obvious. You quietly navigate life with precision, stepping over traps, avoiding unnecessary drama, and making choices that reveal their miscalculations. They scramble to understand how you knew it, while you're already 10 steps ahead, fully aware of the dynamics at play and completely untouched by their attempts to deceive or provoke you. That's why they feel dumb. It's not about intelligence, it's about perception, awareness, and honesty with oneself. You've developed the kind of insight that exposes their blind spots without them even realizing it until it's too late. And the bitterness that follows is the acknowledgement that they were outmaneuvered, not by brute force or confrontation, but by your clarity, foresight, and refusal to participate in their predictable chaos. You are untouchable because you see it all before it even begins, and that truth leaves people scrambling in ways they can't control or comprehend. Number 12. Your growth exposed how much they stayed the same. There's nothing more unsettling for people than seeing someone they thought they understood evolve while they remain stuck in the same patterns, the same habits, and the same limited mindset. You didn't set out to make anyone feel small or irrelevant. You just grew. You improved your mindset, sharpened your awareness, strengthened your boundaries, and elevated the way you operate in life. And in doing so, you unintentionally held up a mirror that reflects exactly how stagnant others have been. That reflection is bitter medicine for anyone who has been unwilling or too afraid to change. People love to measure themselves against others, but only when it makes them feel superior. When someone grows past their expectations, when someone they once underestimated starts living with clarity, discipline, and purpose, it breaks their illusion of control. They thought they had insight into your choices, your limits, and your capabilities, and suddenly all their assumptions are wrong. They scramble to rationalize it, to convince themselves that your growth is either luck, favoritism, or some fluke, because admitting the truth, that they have been stuck while you evolved, is far too uncomfortable. Your transformation highlights what they refused to do. Every step forward you take is a silent testimony to your discipline, resilience, and refusal to compromise your peace for approval. Meanwhile, they're left repeating the same mistakes, falling into the same traps, and holding on to the same illusions they've been nursing for years. That contrast doesn't just make them feel frustrated, it makes them question their own choices, their own efforts, and their own intelligence. The irony is that your growth isn't about them. You didn't change to make them feel inferior. You changed because you valued your life, your time, and your energy too much to remain limited by their expectations. And the bitterness they feel, the envy, the resentment, the frustration, it's all proof of a reality they can't escape. They've been left behind not by force, not by competition, but by someone who simply refused to stay at their level. And that truth hits harder than any insult ever could. Number 13. You walk away without trying to prove your worth, and that's what breaks them. There's a rare power in simply leaving without explanation, without argument, and without the need to convince anyone of your value. Most people have been conditioned to chase validation, to fight for recognition, and to prove themselves constantly to those who don't appreciate them. You don't play that game. You understand that your worth isn't up for debate, and when someone doesn't recognize it, you don't waste your energy trying to force them to see it. You walk away, and that act alone is more devastating than any confrontation ever could be. People who thrive on control, approval, or manipulation are completely unprepared for this kind of detachment. They assume that your presence can be managed, leveraged, or guilted back into compliance. They expect resistance, negotiation, or even emotional pleading. But when you simply remove yourself, when you don't argue or justify your existence, it shatters the very foundation they thought they had over you. Their sense of superiority, control, and influence crumbles, leaving them frustrated, bewildered, and deeply aware of their limitations. What makes this even more painful for them is that your departure isn't personal. You're not leaving out of spite, anger, or revenge. You're leaving because you've realized that your energy, time, and peace are far more valuable than participating in someone else's games. And that realization, the quiet confidence in your choice to disengage, highlights the truth they've been avoiding. They underestimated you, they overestimated themselves, and their attempts to define your worth mean nothing in your world. Walking away without proving anything is a statement louder than any argument or explanation. It leaves them exposed, forced to confront the reality that your value was never dependent on their recognition, and that the person they thought they controlled or understood has always been untouchable. That awareness creates a bitter mix of frustration, humiliation, and awe, and it's all because you refuse to fight for something that never needed to be fought for. Your absence is your power, and it's a truth they can't ignore. Number 14. They feel stupid because they realize too late that you saw through them the entire time. There's a level of awareness you carry that most people underestimate until it's too late. You didn't fall for the lies, the manipulations, or the carefully constructed facades. You noticed the inconsistencies, sensed the hidden motives, and understood the underlying intentions from the beginning. Every word they twisted, every story they spun, every little act meant to deceive you, none of it escaped your attention. And yet, you didn't make a show of catching them. You didn't confront every small betrayal or point out every flaw in real time. You observed, you understood, and you chose when and how to act, letting the truth reveal itself naturally. This is what makes them feel so dumb. They assumed they could control the narrative, manipulate your emotions, or keep their secrets hidden. They thought you were unaware, compliant, or blind. They relied on your patience, kindness, or silence to think they were winning. Then, slowly, the realization hits them. You weren't fooled. You weren't tricked. You were simply steps ahead, seeing the entire picture while they fumbled, overcompensated, and revealed themselves. Their illusions crumble, and with that collapse comes the uncomfortable awareness that they overestimated themselves and underestimated you. The sting is compounded by the fact that you didn't humiliate them or call them out unnecessarily. You didn't need to prove anything. You allowed them to stumble over their own miscalculations, to experience the consequences of their deceit firsthand. And in doing so, you exposed the raw truth. Their cleverness was only surface level, and your clarity had been constant from the start. That moment of realization is brutal. They feel small, exposed, and undeniably aware of the fact that you always knew more than they imagined. They can't go back and reclaim the advantage they thought they had. They can't undo the awareness that you saw through everything, the entire time. And that truth, unspoken but undeniably present, leaves them bitter, frustrated, and painfully aware that the person they underestimated was never someone they could outmaneuver. Conclusion. At the end of the day, being a chosen one isn't about showing off or proving anything. It's about clarity, awareness, and the kind of inner strength that people around you can feel, even when you say nothing. Every point we've explored shows the quiet power you carry. The power to see through deception, to stay grounded while others crumble, to walk away without argument, and to remain unshakable in a world that thrives on chaos. Your presence, your discipline, your refusal to play the games designed to trap others, these aren't just traits. They're proof of a deeper evolution, a level of consciousness that most people can't comprehend until they're confronted by it. The reactions of others, the bitterness, the frustration, the realization that they can't manipulate you, they are not reflections of your shortcomings. They are evidence of the light you carry, a light that exposes what others don't want to see about themselves. When people feel dumb, when they scramble to understand how you knew it all along, it isn't a reflection of their intelligence. It's a reflection of their avoidance, their illusions, and the truth they've refused to face. You don't need to participate in their chaos. You don't need to prove anything or fight for recognition. You simply live your life with integrity, clarity, and purpose. And that, more than anything, is what unsettles them, what leaves them bitter, and what ultimately sets you apart. Being a chosen one means moving through life with the awareness that your energy is sacred, your boundaries are non-negotiable, and your truth is unshakable. It means recognizing the difference between those who want to elevate themselves and those who only seek to manipulate, drain, or control. And it means understanding that the reactions of others, anger, bitterness, jealousy, are not your responsibility. They are the inevitable response of people confronting their own limitations while you operate on a higher plane of clarity. So embrace it, own it, and continue walking your path without compromise. Let your presence speak. Let your calm unsettle, and let your absence reveal the truth they didn't want to face. This is power. This is clarity. This is mastery. If you found this video eye-opening and empowering, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more insights that cut straight through the illusions, like this one. Hit the like button, leave a comment sharing your thoughts or experiences, and don't forget to share this with someone who needs to see it. Your engagement not only supports the channel, but it spreads the awareness that truth and clarity will always rise above games, chaos, and manipulation. Stay powerful. God bless you.